Hello and welcome to ITV's World of Sport with me, Dickie Davies. Tonight we bring you a veritable goldmine of material to remind you what a national treasure we had in World of Sport.
For those of you too young to remember, World of Sport burst into life on ITV in 1965 and was originally anchored by Eamon Andrews. But when Housewife's Choice Dickie Davies took over, the show quickly established itself as the Saturday afternoon sports extravaganza.
Hey, Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why you had to hide away for so long. Where did we go wrong?
Its overwhelming characteristic was its zest, and its great zest through it. And of course the greatest thing about sport is its vitality. And this had vitality and it went right through.
World of Sport was a mix of good traditional mainstream sports like football, like racing.
But then you'd suddenly have log rolling or the Calgary Stampede, and you weren't going to get that on Grandstand.
There was a good serious sports show there, but with lots of lovely twists and turns as well.
To see them again, really to believe them.
You see clips of it now and you think, oh my God, it does look so dated.
Welcome back to World of Sport, and now we can go direct to Wembley Stadium.
But at the time, you didn't think that at all. At the time, you just thought this is a glamorous, exciting, up-to-minute sports show.
It had the greatest opening title sequence of all time.
Times these days, I walk around and someone recognises me and they start whistling the World of Sport march. Dun, 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 and it's still with them.
Great music. I don't know who wrote it. It was a fantastic theme tune.
I think it was Stevie Wonder.
Was it Stevie Wonder?
It might have been.
OK, set your time machine for the 70s. Sit back and enjoy a unique journey to the centre of World of Sport. And as an extra special treat running throughout tonight's show, we also bring you ITV's greatest sporting moments from the past 50 years.
Well, now that you know what the show is all about, we thought it might be useful to tell you a little bit about the presenter of World of Sport. A thoroughly decent chap, by all accounts.
World of Sport for me was Dickie Davies, really.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to World of Sport.
Dickie Davies was Mr. World of Sport, you know, and the show was built around him. You know, he was smooth, he was good-looking, he was urbane, he'd got a nice light touch.
Well, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen.
He was a jolly guy who'd been a purser on Canard, and that's what he looked like. He was a purser. He was such a, hello, come on. He was practically happy campus, Dickie.
I think if they carry on like this, and when you consider that they've got 2.25 hours to kick-off time, then I think the fans are going to be hoarse. There's a kind of battle going on at the moment. As you see, they're beginning to pelt me with all kinds of things. In a very good-natured way, I have to tell you.
He wasn't Dickie Davies when I first met him. He was Richard Davies. And then Jimmy Hill and John Bromley, who were kind of the supremos at the time, thought Richard Davies was a bit po-faced. How can we jazz him up a little bit?
Sounds a bit posh, Richard. I think, how about Dickie? Well, all right, you know, Dickie, OK, yeah, I'll try it.
And it made a fantastic difference. DD. It was alliterative, it was easy to say. And I remember going up to Newcastle to Tyne Tees to do a show with Di Dawes in an aeroplane. And she said, hello, Dee. I said, hello, Dee. She said, do you fancy a double diamond? I said, no, Dad.
He was dashing, and you don't get dashing sports presenters. Dickie Davies always looked like he'd just arrived back from Monte Carlo that morning after a night playing blackjack and talking with Europe's most beautiful women.
Good-looking guy, well-dressed, the little streak.
It always looked like Dickie had been painting the ceiling that morning and hadn't checked before he left.
I don't know, it's a family trait, I don't know, but it was for real. Everybody thought I used to put it in, but I didn't. It was there for real.
With his famous melon streak and sophisticated charm, Dickie Davies seemed to have it all. But sometimes even the People's presenter cocked it up.
4.5 hours, it's possible that you might make a mistake. I would come up and say, well, that's next week. Now, finally, before I say goodbye, this is the soccer that you can see on ITV tomorrow. And on this occasion, it was cup soccer.
So that brings us to the end of our programme. Now let's have a look at the cup soccer that you can see on ITV.
Only when I got off did I realise what I'd said and what it sounded like.
Now let's have a look at the cup soccer that you can see on ITV.
Oh, God.
Of course, being the governor, Dickie got all the glamour gigs. And they don't come much more glamorous than Miss Sports World 1976.
No other sports programme could have its own beauty contest, could it? You know, and of course Dickie Davies was in his element.
We're going to start in the traditional manner with a swimsuit parade. And if I can just remind you, the judges will be looking for their involvement in sport, together with poise and charm. Sandra is 21 and comes from Harlow in Essex. Her main sport is the pentathlon.
The idea was that the girls that took part should be sports-orientated, they should be competitors, and they could also take part in. And it was a real jolly, an incredible jolly. We had good fun.
And living up to his image as a TV sex god, Dickie wasted no time in offering the lucky winner his personal congratulations.
It would be right for me to accept a kiss from the lady who won. I think that was my reward. I wasn't getting any more money for doing it anyway.
Whether snogging sporting lovelies, horse whispering or just being himself, Dickie Davies will always remain Mr. World of Sport.
Whoa. The incredible thing is now, people often say to me, can I have the results please, Dickie? It's amazing, isn't it? So it had an impact. And maybe I had a bit of an impact, I don't know. What a thoroughly nice bloke. Anyway, coming up after the break, we reveal the first of our ITV sporting highlights. And we have a compilation of the sports that dared not speak their name.
Tarabanka coming roaring around the outside, it's straight into the banking.
Welcome back to ITV's World of Sport. Dickie's just nipped out for a quick fight with a typist, so we thought we'd show you the first of our ITV sports recollections. ITV has been at the forefront of sports broadcasting for 50 years, so as a little pat on the back, we've chosen some of the most memorable moments from the big hitters of British sport. First we go snooker loopy.
And the match at a very interesting stage. 2 frames all, best of 9 frames.
With a brand new larder waiting for the first Q-man to make a maximum 147 on telly, Steve Davis might have been forgiven for accidentally miscuing. But 15 reds, 15 blacks and 5 colours later, and ITV had yet another exclusive.
It wasn't a perfect 147 by any means. I had to pot the black and leave myself a very long red. And I was queuing from the bulk area of the table at a long straight shot, which could have gone anywhere.
Beautiful shot, beautiful shot.
The crowd then were up for it, and that's when the nerves started.
Fabulous shot. And this is it, the first 147 break on television. There it is! Beautiful! 147!
Because it's something that had never happened in a match before, to some degrees you never believe it's possible. So when it does happen, was that really me, or did it really happen? So it's a strange feeling, and I've never repeated it.
But when you've done it once, Steve, you know, it would shatter your reputation if you become boringly repetitive, wouldn't it?
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the big one. The news of the world International Darts Championship.
ITV's pioneering coverage of Arrows became essential viewing for millions, but one player took the game to a new level. The crafty Cockney, Eric Bristow.
Them days, young players didn't play darts, you know what I mean? It was all the older clientele and the big big lads, you know what I mean, big beer drinking lads. So I was just, I was a one-off.
The crafty Cockney kicks off the final, and look at this.
180!
Oh, what a start.
True to form, Eric stormed to yet another World Championship in front of a rabid Wembley crowd.
Here's Eric Bristow looking for 68. 48 left. And now 2 16s, and that is the finish from Eric Bristow. What a moment for him.
So finally I won the News of the World in 1983, beat Ralph Flatt from Norfolk in the final. Good final. He played all right. And then my dad said to me, I've won about 10 world titles by now. And my dad said, now you're a dart player.
Well, now we have some international sports which, for some bizarre reason, never quite caught on. Roll VT.
In target diving, the premium's on accuracy. If you miss the target, you're out of the competition.
I think this is probably the first time we've been able to bring you this sport on television. And that is hovercraft racing.
If World of Sport is remembered for nothing else, it will be for the raft of bizarre international activities it regularly treated us to. The definition of sport had never received such a thorough mauling.
Here is Yolani.
We had cliff diving from Acapulco.
Here's the takeoff. The World Log Soaring Championships. Barrel jumping from Connecticut.
He's up and he's over.
Dickie would introduce it almost as an apology. He'd say, well, let's now look at a sport that we haven't seen a lot of before.
I wonder why.
And you wonder, mainly because it's rubbish.
Yes.
There are people here from all over the world to find the 1979 World Ballooning Champion.
The BBC had all what you'd call the pucker sports, you know, your Wimbledons, your test matches, rugby union, rugby league and so on. So World of Sport had to go for some really, really bizarre activities.
People used to take the mickey out of us for doing this, but I have to tell you that those were the things they talked about in the pub on the Saturday night.
Devoted viewers would tune in every Saturday to see just how left field World of Sport would go, and it rarely disappointed.
Canal vaulting is very popular in Holland. You can line the banks of the canal and, you know, watch these idiots try and vault over the whole thing, and most of them don't make it.
They've got Kochitov and Kubicek. Try saying that quickly. And away they go.
A Lion King on ice, maybe, but Speedway? These bikes don't even have any brakes.
Coming roaring round the outside, it's straight into the banking.
Here we go.
Good job for the Big Apple's finest that this coincided with the New York Arsonists Championships.
So far, so good. Just a little slip there. Oh, the car almost went out into a spin.
Can you guess what it is yet?
A more pointless sport you couldn't wish to find.
Exactly. It was like a drunken uncle at a barbecue gets hold of one of the kids. Here, I'll hold this, I'll get on, I'll go backwards. And it's the sort of thing your uncle does when he's drunk and ends up in casualty. It wasn't a sport, it was bizarre.
That wasn't Martina Navratilova on that bike, was it? Anyway, next we'd remind every hopeless punter of the money they flush down the drain every Saturday on World of Sport. Free, the ITV7.
With a furlong and a half to go, is Nijinsky cruising into the lead from Politico.
In the 1970s, World of Sport truly broke the horse racing mould with 2 hours of televised nags and the magical ITV7.
It's Bill Reef, the winner. Linda Tree, second, Irish Ball, third.
The idea was that you could put a bob down, a shilling, on a horse, and it would accumulate. Pick a winner for each of the 7 races, and that was it. Well, of course, it became very popular indeed.
It worked, and it was understandable. I mean, there've been various roll-ups and scoop sixes and things, and nothing has actually, I don't think, bettered the concept. And people do remember. I mean, the moment you say ITV7, people immediately know what we're talking about.
Let's have a look at the full list, though. In the 1:30 at Lingfield, the first leg, they go for number 19, Truly Blessed. In the 1:45 at Newcastle, number 6, Gordon's Lad.
My dad would spend 6 or 7 hours
poring over form books, the end result of which he'd probably put a 15p accumulator on the ITV7. There's a lot of fuss for 15p, and invariably, after the first race, you could just hear the sound of tearing as my dad just gone again at night.
They're desperately close together. Birdfest just gets his head in front, but Night Nurse fights back. Night Nurse in front again, coming to the line. Night Nurse is going to win it at the line, a photo finish.
Every now and again, they would parade somebody who won a massive amount of money, probably only 40,000 quid, 60,000 quid, 80,000, I don't know, but they would have them on, and Dickie would give them a cheque as another little bait to keep people watching, because my dad would go, there you are, see, look, that could be me next week.
For an outlay of £1.60, a world record of nearly £84,000, plus consolation dividends of £8,000, was scooped by a gentleman from Bury St Edmunds, Frank Bradley. We're delighted to have Frank, along with his wife, with us in the World of Sport studio today. Can I just ask you, first of all, Ada, did you watch the whole thing on television?
Yes.
Just how exciting was it?
Very exciting.
Stuart McConaughey, who was one of our editors, and we had a bet, and we actually won the ITV7. I think we won 125 quid. So we went for the safe ones, didn't we? By the time we bought champagne for everyone, there was nothing left.
A horse, my kingdom for a horse. Join us after the break for a spot of association football.
Oh, he's shaken off Jardine there. And there's a good shot. Oh, he's there! Jerry Francis!
And some motorcycling madness.
There he goes. He's forward too much. No, what a fantastic jump. That must be the world record of all time.
Hello again. You know, someone said to me the other day, didn't you used to be Dickie Davies? Well, I can assure you I still am Dickie Davies, and this is still ITV's World of Sport, the most popular Saturday sport show ever. Now for a look at the national sport, which began and ended our show every single week. A little bit of footy. On me head, son.
For any 70s kid, the choice was stark. Posh Blue Peter on the Beeb, or Working Class Magpie on ITV. For footy fans, however, it was a no-brainer. You had to be on the ball.
On the Ball was one of those shows that would make you switch away from the BBC and would be part of your Saturday afternoon, because they did football really well.
But On the Ball would have been a deflated old pig's bladder without the governor between the sticks. There's only one, Brian Moore.
Brian Moore was, in my view, the best football commentator, was Brian. He had a passion for it. He had immense knowledge, and you felt when he was commentating it came from in there.
Oh, he's shaken off Jardine there. And there's a good shot. Oh, he's there! Jerry Francis! Oh, Jerry Francis, a beautiful goal!
Moore was a real football man, and I think the football fans, they recognise that.
Always keen to gazump Auntie Beeb, On the Ball even managed to pair up the hottest sex symbol of the day with Raquel Welch.
I found myself sitting there with this lady alongside me with the cameras on during the match, explaining what I could about the game. And she was great fun to be with.
Look at him.
He's just standing there. He's trying to stop the goalkeeper coming out one way, and in the end, you see, he makes him kick it off his weak foot. So he makes
But Jimmy had to take it on the chin when Miss Welsh made it clear that she loved another.
Peter Osgood then was Chelsea's number 9 and the big name, and I managed to get the Chelsea manager to let Peter Osgood do an interview with her.
Hello. There it is. Hello. Peter Osgood, Raquel Welch.
And she says, oh, hi, Ozzy, as if she'd known him all her life. You know, and Ozzy sort of blinked a bit. And, I'm very well, thank you.
In 1985, On the Ball underwent a serious makeover, thanks to football's very own Laurel and Hardy, Saint and Greasy.
It was a marriage made in heaven, really, to be honest, the Saint and Greavesy, and it was great television. Great bit of casting, but that's what World of Sport was very good at, you see, casting.
This is the immortal £10 note.
Well, thank you very much.
That's all right, I'll present it to you next week.
Saint and Greavesy were the guys in the pub. They knew what football fans were thinking. They could vocalise what football fans were thinking. They could cut through the crap.
I've got the ID card here. This is the new ID card for our Minister of Sport. And on behalf of millions of fans, Mr Minister, I'm going to do to this what they all have requested me to do. And I'd like to... thank you, Minister. Yes! Yes!
It's very much like playing the game of football
when you're working with a partner on television, because, you know, if you're in football, you know what his strength is, and you know the type of ball he might want. Like Jimmy being a goal scorer, you think, well, he likes it played there, he likes this kind of thing. And so I eventually learned what his strengths were.
And then Jimmy, a bit like he did as a player, would just turn up and do the killer gag, do the winning line. And then Saint would go, and that was the formula. And it worked a treat.
Jesus Christ! I've just left his stomach back in the pit.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone says, they introduced humour to sport in this country. Now a lot of people copy them. If you look at the Fantasy Football Show, if you look at what they do in the mornings in Sky, I mean, it's St Greavesy 10 years on, 15 years on.
Whether it was Moro or St Greavesy, your appetite for the beautiful game was now well and truly whetted. It was just a matter of counting down the hours until the Holy Grail.
We'd have this sting into it, you know. Da, 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 da.
Now it's time for the classified results. The full pools check now with Bob Colston.
Cannon League Division 1. Birmingham 0, Southampton 0.
There was never any doubt with Bob. You always knew whether it was thumbs up or thumbs down.
Coventry 2, Norwich 1. Everton 3, Queen's Park Rangers 1. Ipswich 2, Aston Villa 1.
You indicate by your inflection to the listener what the result is on the first team, so that if you go on the upbeat, Arsenal 3, you know they've won, but if it's the downbeat, Arsenal 3, you know they've lost.
He'd have made a great heart specialist. Mr. Jones, we've got the results of your tests, and you're going to live. Mr. Smith, we've got the results of your tests, and you're going to die.
It's a funny old game, isn't it? You know, I'm often asked the most daring thing I've ever done, and I suppose it was when I risked a toilet break during a greyhound race. But here's some brave hearts who may have slightly overshadowed old DD on that score.
I think I compete against the greatest competitor in life when I jump, and that competitor is death. And when he beats you, you don't come back for any rematch.
There was a 2-year period when men on motorbikes jumping over buses or canyons was considered the most exciting thing going. And it would be front-page headlines. If you know, another bus was added by whoever it was, people would say, no, you can't jump 21 buses. He's jumped 22.
Well, what he told me, Egon Knievel, as he looked down this ramp now, what he told me is you hang on, you get the right speed, and then you really will the bike over those 13 buses.
We went down to Wembley. It was a bank holiday Monday. Evil was going to do his jump live, you know, obviously live in front of the audience, but live on telly as well. And the place was at over 100,000 people. And you have to say that was the power of World of Sport.
And here he goes. It's full speed, and he's rising up the ramp now. And he's made it. No, he's crashed on the run-in. He's crashed on. I said that was the point where he would have the trouble.
And, of course, our version of Evel Knievel was Eddie Kidd, who was this kind of beautiful boy, great sort of pin-up, and he started to do these stunts as well.
We'd seen Evel Knievel, who obviously was incredibly American. And then when you saw Eddie's attempts at doing it, he was very English.
This is it, I'm going there.
Oh, well done. You're sticking with that bike. You're satisfied with the bike now?
Yes, great.
Lovely. All the luck in the world.
Thank you very much.
Eddie Kidd. Got to get it up to 70, 75 mile an hour. The crowd are all cheering. Let's hope there's no trouble in. And there he goes. He's forward too much. No, what a fantastic jump. That must be the world record of all time.
There was one Eddie Kidd where he jumped over a load of buses and made the jump, but then sort of came off at the end.
And Eddie Kidd, the London Kid, is going to try and beat the Evel Knievel record. He's got to get in at full power at the 17-foot takeoff. And I think he's made it. He's done it. He's done it clean and so simply. And he's rushed in and he's into the ditch at the bottom.
There's lots of blokes in white coats who look like scientists. They're obviously not doctors of physics, because at one point they hold up a blanket to try and stop a motorbike that's going at about 70 miles an hour.
One bloke, I mean, he absolutely span into the air. It was, I have to say, it was fantastic. I reckon he could have cleared the buzzes himself. I think he was all right. I'm sure. If you watch him, mate, you know, it was worth it, believe me.
Oh, that really hurt, didn't it? Well, now, before we go to the news break, we continue our countdown of the most watched ITV sporting highlights. Enjoy.
In 1997, ITV outbid the old enemy for one of the crown jewels of sports broadcasting, Formula One.
Go! Nice start from Coulthard. Great start from Schumacher. Schumacher second. Schumacher has passed Mika Häkkinen already. And is going for the lead, and off goes. Now they're going to stop the race, no doubt about that at all. And back at
1998's Canadian Grand Prix had not one but two false starts.
this is going to be another race stop.
The overrun unintentionally brought millions of anxious Coronation Street fans to the sport as they waited for their soapy fix.
Schumacher wins in Canada after yet another drive that proves what a magnificent driver he is.
At the Moscow Olympics in 1980, the future Lord Coe beat arch-rival Steve Ovett for the first time over 1,500 metres, winning gold in the process. But that was just the beginning.
We were very lucky that these two, after the immense competition in Moscow, could come back the following year and then just ran their hearts out in Oslo and Zurich, and world records just tumbling one after the other. It was like a mad 17 days when we're going from stadium to stadium saying it can't get better than this. And it did.
But Seb was determined to have the last word. And on a balmy night in Brussels, the mile had never seemed so sublimely golden.
It was total focus, total relaxation, total speed. I mean, everything, it was perfect. It was perfect running.
3:48.4, the world record is the time to beat. And Boyd is still hanging in there. And Coe coming in, the crowd is cheering him on. It's a wonderful run, it's unbelievable. The world record is regained by Sebastian Coe again tonight.
Well, my fastest mile was just under 5 minutes. Mind you, I was chasing Miss Sports World 1976 at the time. So please join us after the news when we bring you some sunshine, some Boston crabs, and a crash, and lots more.
I'm not sure if we should show that.
World of Sport continues after the ITV News.
Welcome back to ITV's World of Sport. A joyous safari through the sporting savannah of yesteryear. So what do you think of the show so far? Rubbish? No way.
One of World of Sport's greatest ever coups was in casting an exciting new double act in the Christmas of 1977.
Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to World of Sport. And on this very special Christmas Eve edition, can I start by thanking you all so very much for the Christmas cards you kindly sent to us. It's good to know that we have so many friends out there. It's also good to know that we can spend a bit of that Christmas with you. Today, although our programme is shorter than you...
Excuse me. Sorry, I'm late.
You've arrived?
Yes, I was on the last plane. That one there.
When I met Dickie, and I have to say, and I'm not sure whether he's been a tinker or not, Dickie told me that what had happened was Eric Morecambe and he were very good mates, they were close mates. He told me that Eric had been at his house the night before and they'd accidentally got drunk. And then when Dickie was leaving the house, Eric said, "Can I come along with you?"
And he'd said to me, look, he said, "I'll do the funnies. You just carry on as if I'm not there. You just carry on and be yourself, do the business." Which I think I did. And he was hilarious.
About the same size as Ernie. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's about the same size. Just about the same size as Ernie.
I can't understand why somebody from the BBC wasn't on the phone after the first link saying to Eric Morecambe, "What are you doing? You tight your feet? Do you mind? It's a contract. There must be agents, lawyers going." But Eric sat there and was there the whole afternoon, as I recall, and basically proceeded to make Dickie Davies' corpse as often as he possibly could, by all sorts of methods.
For today, another world-class presentation of this popular pastime with the first ever World Cup. Throwers from 18 nations gathered in London to contest this trophy from as far afield as Japan, Australia and Bermuda.
Oh, what?
And a tough task faced the visiting countries when you consider the strength and depth enjoyed by England, Scotland and Wales. Now, as the event moved into the final stages, it became clear that the home countries were not about to let things slip.
He was the funniest man I think I've ever met. Funniest man. And the kindest man, too.
You've got two of the greatest icons of the 70s presenting a programme together live. It should be a seminal TV moment, but it seems to have fallen off people's radar, and I'm not quite sure why that is. I'm not sure. You see all these polls of great sport moments of the 70s, or great comedy moments of the 70s. That should be in both.
And eventually it was England and Wales who would have been in the final, which included triples, doubles and singles. We joined the action midway through an enthralling triples competition. England, having stormed into an impressive 4-1 lead, were hauled back by the never-say-die Welshmen. So much so that with just 2 legs to play...
The last time I saw anything like that on top lip, the whole herd had to be destroyed.
It's real.
Bring me sunshine, bring me... Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realise we were back. Anyway, now for some cup soccer. And I did say cup soccer.
Cup final day was the jewel in the year, really. And it would start... Yeah, I think it might even start even before 9:30, where you were with the two teams right the way through.
Cup final day was basically, that's all you did. As a kid, you got up, you had your breakfast, and then you watched the cup final.
We have a programme that we are convinced will stimulate, excite and entertain you for 6 hours. That may sound a long time, but there's going to be so much happening it really will fly by.
Who do you all support? And what do you think of Fulham? I'm not sure if we should show that.
Cup final day might have seemed like all your birthdays and Christmases rolled into one, but if you worked for the two main broadcasters, it was more like the space race meets World War III.
We were always looking for new ideas because BBC were the #1 sporting channel, and we had to find ways to get BBC viewers to have a look at our channel.
Over on BBC, they're probably doing some kind of dull analysis of the third round game. So what we'll have is Jimmy Tarbuck introducing a bloke in a straitjacket in a big tank of water.
Are you ready up there, Cat? 1, 2, 3, go! Remembering this is the trick that killed Harry Houdini.
And we had some stars. I mean, we had Freddie Starr on one occasion. I mean, looking for Humphreys in the net. He was the referee, walked out, dressed up as Hitler in his wellies, and it was hilarious.
So what about the pitch itself?
Well, I've got to look now for the Humphreys.
What are the Humphreys?
The Humphreys?
Yeah.
Watch out, there's a Humphrey about!
What we used to try and do is to try and introduce celebrity into it. We had a celebrity bar over in the conference centre.
Well, I was with the company and they said, do you want to do the cup final day? Well, I mean, that's like saying to a little boy, do you want to go in Hamley's toy shop and you can have anything you want in Hamley's? And I went, yes, please, at Wembley, and you can bring heroes on and we'll find people. Well, did they find people?
You know, ladies and gentlemen, we are filming here later. Rod Stewart's going to buy a drink, and it's called Tales of the Unexpected.
English money, too. English money.
On behalf of Elton, Smaller here. See you all soon.
In the early days of my time on World of Sport, FA Cup final day, I was man in the crowd.
Let's call in our man in the crowd again, Fred Dinage.
Still the big problem down here is tickets or the lack of them. Thousands of fans without tickets. I've got just 3 in front of me.
You'd have Fred Dinage going in and sort of picking people out at random, asking for their hard luck stories about why they couldn't get tickets or couldn't afford the 10 bob for it. And Fred would produce 3 tickets out of his pocket, and he must have been giving 50 tickets, and nobody stopped to think, oh, hang about, that's why I can't get a ticket. You've got 50 in your pocket, you TV nonce.
I've got 3 tickets. I'm happy to give these tickets to you. That's excellent. One to you. If I was a lady, I'd kiss you. One to you. One to you. Thank you. Enjoy the match. Thanks very much.
We were the first to have cameras on the team coaches coming to Wembley, which was always good because you get the feeling of apprehension on the players and their players' point of view. So we tried to do things that were different.
But it's the journey of a lifetime for the second division footballers from Sunderland. There's Mickey Horswill and Billy Hughes, and our reporter on the left was Paul Doherty. They really are having the time of their lives here.
But there were some World of Sport innovations which missed the bus entirely.
Someone came up with this computer which was going to predict not only the overall score of the FA Cup final, but was going to break it up into 15-minute segments and tell us what was going to happen in each of those 15-minute segments, what the score was going to be, and who the scorers were. Phenomenal.
Let's now to the second half. Peter Lloyd, first of all, any comment from the computer before we start?
Yes, just coming up.
And the computer is saying what?
We've got Chelsea are superior at tackling.
It was so well cast, there was a kind of a boffin at one keyboard and then some sort of 60s model sitting at the other. And I'm sure what they did on the World of Sport computer was type things like Chelsea are a slightly better team, and then it came up. I think it was typing. I don't think there was any computing going on at all.
What if a young Bill Gates was watching that and was inspired? That's right. He might have been. That was the prototype.
He was a big fan of World of
That
Sport.
was Windows 1970, wasn't it?
So the final result then, according to the computer, is Chelsea 2, Leeds United 3.
Meanwhile, back on planet Earth, the real final score was 2-2. Close, but no cigar.
Oh, gosh, those memories come flooding back and I'm always filling up. But the show must go on. We continue our countdown of the most watched ITV sporting highlights.
For 50 years, ITV has been a major sports broadcaster, covering all the big events and capturing hundreds of historic sporting moments. We break the ice with a look back to 1984.
Jane and Chris take the ice, and here they go for their 4th consecutive gold medal.
Having just won Olympic gold in Sarajevo, Torvill and Dean were hot property, and ITV landed the rights to show their last ever amateur appearance. They won their 4th consecutive gold medal, performing their party piece to Ravel's Bolero. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Now for artistic impression. There can only be one mark, can't there? And there is. The parents are thrilled. Everyone's thrilled. It couldn't be anything else.
So recent and treasured a sporting memory, this needs no introduction.
Johnny Wilkinson, he's got it! England in the lead with only 20 seconds to go.
The one thing I remember about it is the contact. When Johnny actually kicked the ball, you heard leather on leather as such, and it just sounded sweet. And then when the roar went up, you obviously knew that it went over.
You could not have written the script any better. You couldn't. You know, you don't want to go to drop goals. The way it finished was just beautiful. It was poetry.
people at that time with boxing, Saturday night, they would break all their habits, whether you dinner parties, out to the pub, out to the cinema. It all went by the wayside to watch these two fellas at it.
Boxing matches don't come much bigger than this. The grudge match to end all grudge matches. The Dark Destroyer meets simply the best pugilistic fop.
The rivalry with Penn and Eubank was very strong. That it wasn't for publicity purposes, that's for sure.
Just couldn't stand him. I really, really couldn't. It's just seeing him, I just wanted to jump on him and fight him.
When they came together, you got magic.
Two good shots there. Then Pete goes red.
Oh, almost got out on that. That's very good. Oh, what a shot now.
Not really shooting.
Helped him up with the left hand.
Ben is shaking. The eyes watch red. This will be the finish of the Melbourne.
It's all over in the 9th round.
Well, the crowd there and the viewers at home really got their money's worth there, didn't they? Join us after the break for some hot grappling action. And the #1 most watched ITV sports event of all time.
A long way towards Tony Adams. Oh, Campbell. It's Campbell who's finally got the touch.
OK, viewers, we've saved the best of World of Sport until last. Half Nelsons, tag teams, figure-hugging leotards and final public warnings. No, it's not synchronised swimming.
Whether you were 4 years old or 94 years old, whether you were male or female, it was a very pleasant hour to sit down and watch on a Saturday afternoon somebody getting a good hiding.
Professional wrestling became absolutely huge. 4 to 5 every Saturday was professional wrestling time. It had the most amazing following, a huge following. BBC could never beat it between 4 and 5. Wrestling produced some real characters who became actually, at the time, if you like, superstars because of World of Sport.
Hello, grappling fans. Good afternoon to you and welcome to the De Montfort Hall.
Helped in no small measure by the unmistakable commentary of Kent Walton, wrestling quickly became a World of Sport institution. Well, you couldn't really go wrong with larger-than-life legends such as Big Don't Call Me Shirley Daddy, Giant Haystacks, Mick the Man They Love to Hate McManus, Les Kellett and the masked mystery man Kendo Nagasaki.
The British wrestlers who were on World of Sport looked like the sort of blokes you saw fighting on a pub car park on a Friday night. Now, it was OK to have a beer belly and man breasts. You know, these men are more dangerous, I think, dangerous looking than The Rock and stuff like that, because they're men who don't seem to have much to lose.
Well, this is the one.
Pig farmer turned wrestling legend Les Kellett certainly looked desperate.
Oh, he was a hard nut, Les. He was one of those fellas who, I don't know, certain people have a pain barrier, don't they, a pain threshold. He's one of those fellas who no one could seem to hurt him.
He would do this drunken thing where you'd come for him and he would pretend to be drunk and wobble out of the way and you'd go past him.
He got natural comic timing, he had all the facial expressions. He was kind of Chaplin-esque.
If Les Kellett was like Chaplin, then Man Mountain Giant Haystacks was a small army of fatty arbuckles.
The 6'11", 42 stone, the Giant Haystacks.
Haystacks was a big, big man. He weighed anything between like 38 and 40 stone, and that's a big fellow, big, and of course he had this great beard and this mob of black hair. And he really did look fearsome.
Flying tackle. Now he's in trouble. Lee is in trouble with a slam. And the flash. And can he get up from it? A lot of people don't get up from a haystack splash.
But strangely enough, he was a very quiet fellow. Had a very quiet voice and never outsider, never sort of bombastic or anything like that. Very, very quiet fellow.
Mr. Haystacks might have been as quiet as a mouse outside the ring, but some wrestlers came with their own professional rent-a-gob.
Here is the greatest wrestler the world has ever seen, King Kendo Nagasaki.
He never ever heard him say anything. He would never speak. He spoke through an interpreter.
Kendo, could you tell us what makes a great wrestler?
Could I just interject there at that point? Kendo never speaks. If you'd done your history on the British wrestling, you would know that. He never speaks. So you have to address your question to me, I'm afraid.
Having grown weary of so many vain attempts to unmask him, Kendo finally decided the time was right to reveal his true identity.
And the ceremony, of course, that you've all been waiting for is that of the unmasking of the superstar himself, Kendo Nagasaki.
I remember my dad calling me in. Wherever I was, my dad and my mum called us. They're unmasking Kendo Nagasaki. My mum sitting there going, "What the sad people."
And he got like these weird contact lenses. It looked like he got no eyes. He had just like this one colour eyeball, which, if you think about it, would have been a severe disability for a wrestler.
Despite the sweaty glamour and the killer viewing figures, in 1988 the truly unthinkable happened. The wrestling got pulled.
One of my aims on going to LWT was to take ITV out market. And I thought one of the ways of doing that was you had to get rid of these symbolic things that held it in the past. So one of the first things I did as chairman of ITV Sport was scrap the wrestling.
What a beastly rotter! A nation of grapple fans mourned, but he can never take away our memories. Have a good week. Till next week, goodbye.
Well, that's nearly all, folks, except for the big one. The #1 televised sports event shown in 50 years of ITV. Have you guessed yet?
Every day it comes to this. Catch the things you might have missed, you say. Get back to yesterday.
Let's face it, never mind #1. When it comes to naming the top 3 sports for most Brits, it's football, football and football. And ITV has always been a main player on the big national and international occasions. But when the best part of half the nation tunes in to watch a game, you know it must be something special. The 1998 World Cup, and ITV were in Saint-Etienne with exclusive coverage of one of the most astonishing and heartbreaking games in England's history, as Glenn Hoddle's team set out to avenge the hand of God.
Well, Seaman's just well. He didn't get these given a penalty. And it's 1-0 Argentina. It's a red card for David Beckham. Oh, no. A long way towards Tony Adams. Oh, Campbell. It's Campbell who's finally got the touch.
He's disallowed it, Brian.
Disallowed it. David Batty is coming forward for England, and he must score. You back him to score quickly, yes or no?
Yes.
Oh, and he hasn't. No. Argentina go through, and England go out.
We may have lost, but the nation will always remember one moment of pure English genius.
David Beckham played a ball to me and I managed to take it in my stride.
Beckham now to Owen.
I managed to get the ball and run at the defenders. I'd noticed that they were dropping back. Don't think it was because they were scared of Alan Shearer's pace.
And here's another Owen run. He's going to worry them again.
I had a defender on me. Took it to the side of him, and then I just remember Scholesy closing in, but I was just in front of him and managed to clip the ball into the far top corner.
Oh, it's a wonderful goal!
Well, you just don't do this at 28 years of age, let alone 18. He runs at people. The pace is frightening. But the finish is unbelievable.
Well, I have to say it's been a pleasure and indeed an honour to get back behind the old desk and anchor the good ship World of Sport for one last time. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I have enjoyed presenting it. So from me, Dickie Davis, good night and God bless.